All right, cool. All right, everybody, welcome to Spearfactor. We're here with local legend, Colin Smith. Colin is a former professional surfer and longtime spearfisherman. So welcome to the show, Colin.
Thank you.
All right, bud. So I guess the first question is, could you kind of give us a little bit of background about like where you grew up and how your kind of attachment to the sea began?
Yeah, so my dad was a surfer, and then my grandfather, I mean, that was a long time ago. He was really into, body surfing and stuff. My dad was really got into surfing a lot. His brother got into surfing, and then, it was my uncle, and my uncle ended up becoming a commercial urchin diver.
Oh, that's right.
And so he did that for a long time too. But so anyway, I started surfing super young, and then little snorkeling here and there. But then I had a pretty big knee injury in about I was probably 21 or 21 years old, and that's when I really started to. I couldn't surf because the knee injury was so bad, so I started diving because actually just the movement of the fins and stuff was rehab and helping my knee, and then I just kind of fell in love with it. It was just.
It's
Just
different.
kept going crazy trying to find a halibut, and then found my first halibut, and then whatever, just kept, and then started going out further and further and just looking for more stuff, and they're just, that's kind of how it all started. But yeah, the family spent a lot of time. We've been, a couple generations at least of pretty involved with playing in the water. I think my great grandfather got in a rowboat. And he was maybe one of the first guys to do it from Newport to Catalina.
Uh-huh.
I don't even know, like the 30s or something. And so, anyways, yeah, whatever. Family likes to play, and so I like to play too.
It's in your DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's hard too, like being married to people like us, because my wife's like, originally it was like, I don't feel like I'm enough, because you're constantly like, you gotta go, and I was like, no, I want you to come with me.
Right.
And like, let's go do this together.
Yeah.
And then, now as we get older, it's like, I'm going 100% into this, or 100% into this, or like jujitsu.
Right.
Or like, it's just everything. Yoga, or whatever it is, it's like 100%.
Go.
Like, and it's weird because I always thought like I never wanted to be a has-been. But then I kind of realized like, it's such a negative word, but like, you're going to be a has-been football player, right? You can't play football for the rest of your life. And you're going to be a has-been, whatever. So don't be a has-been. Just rechannel your energy into something positive. Like, I don't drink, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really just... So anyways, I think that's a big part of the formula for how obsessed we get with our stuff is like just having that desire to begin with. But so what would you say would be like some early obstacles? I mean, obviously you have the background in surfing, so you understand the ocean. What would you say would be like early obstacles you had diving, like clearing, or just trying to like find people to dive with was a big one for me.
Yeah. I didn't even realize that I had some sort of problem with dairy, but I did. And so clearing was difficult for me when I first started diving. And I dove a lot. Like I would dive every day, like right? Yeah. So, and then I noticed every time I was diving, God, I had all this congestion and stuff that would be in my mask. And then all of a sudden, after diving a bunch of consecutive days, like maybe more than a month of consecutive days of diving, and I just noticed there wasn't as much of that phlegm and shit coming up. And then I started correlating. So I don't know if I have some sort of problem with dairy or if that's a normal thing for most people, but I cut dairy out completely, and then now, like, I don't have to touch my nose or anything. I can just clear. And I found that I think there's a lot. I don't know the science behind it, but I just know for me personally that when my sinuses were clear, I just didn't have to push so hard to clear, and it just diving to any kind of depth was easier. And I know. People take Sudafed and things like that. But diet actually was one of the things that it kind of showed me that, hey, this dairy's not helping you
Right.
equalize and go to the places that you want to go to get a fish. So anyway, that was one of the obstacles initially, and then yeah, there was just not a lot of people. I mean, we're talking about probably 1991, and there wasn't a lot of people that were diving.
Yeah.
So we would. There was a friend of mine, Chris Lind, who got super into diving at the same time, and so we used to do a lot of diving together. But I would go by myself too, and so it's amazing now to see what it's all blown up to. I mean,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so it's just that's as far as other obstacles. Well, the obstacles of the guns, the guns they sold just weren't worthy of the fish that we were trying to get.
Right.
So we had to make our own guns.
I think that's what led me to your house that day. I shot
Yeah.
a white sea bass with a 3-band, I don't know, a rail gun, and the shaft went in about an inch.
It was
And I was so
lucky.
crushed because I've been looking for those things for so long. And then
Yeah.
I went and got to it, and it just took
Ripped
off.
out. Yeah.
And then I asked you, I was talking to you at the fuel dock. That's another thing. You own the Harbor Island fuel dock, so if
Yeah.
you need fuel, go there. I remember I was talking to you, you were like, come over and I'll
Yeah.
show you. Yeah.
Well, we made a lot of guns that didn't work.
Right.
And so, anyway, where we ended up was I just started. They're a copy of the old attic guns, which are the guns that Wally Potts used to make. I just started putting more volume, which was the first gun I ever made, was an exact copy of what Wally made, and I used Wally Potts's mechanism
Yeah.
and his reels, and then we had to go get the spears made and the
Yeah.
tips, and so it was.
So you went over to Wally's house?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. We went over and bought. He would sell slide rings, and he would sell the mechanism, and then you design your gun. And I looked at what he had, and I was like, oh, that looks great. And so we made the guns as he had them, and I think at that time Bob Johnson was making the reels, and so we went up to his house up at Claremont Mesa, and there was just this sort of little underground network that you had to know, or you were going to the store and buying some gun that wasn't really going to shoot much more than a calico,
Right.
And so
Yeah.
you kind of had to get into this little circle, and I just sort of fell into it, and then
How did you fall into it? How did you meet the guys like Potts and
Predominant.
Jack? Yeah.
well, I was neighbors with Jack, but that was much later, but.
I was here in Sunset?
Yeah,
Cliffs,
he
or-
lived over by Point Loma High School,
Oh, okay.
and I lived literally right across the street
Okay.
for 2.5 years or so,
Yeah.
and that was right when I was designing and trying to find the right gun and playing with different stuff, and so I'd go talk to him, and he would give because those guys really had done everything. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd have some idea, and I would go over to their house and I say, hey, what do you think? And they'd be like, oh yeah, I've done that before. Let me show you how. And then they tell me how it worked out for them.
Yeah.
And so, but they had kind of different philosophies too. And so it was interesting to have both those guys to be able to talk to. But how I originally got into the circle of people was actually there's a guy, Cliff Sorensen from Solana Beach, who, Wes Andrews. He was buddies with a guy named Wes Andrews, who was part of that old guard of spearfishing guys.
Yeah.
Not as old as Wally and Jack, but
Yeah.
and there was just a small group of guys, and if you didn't get close to those guys by some stroke of luck or something, then you really didn't even kind of know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
And so I met Cliff, and he showed me this picture of this big black sea bass he'd speared, and I was like, holy crap. And then he showed me his gun. I'm like, oh man. And so that's how it. So then Cliff was like, "Oh, you're interested?" He saw I was all fired up, and so then.
How old were you at this time?
21.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
20, 21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hungry?
Yeah. Just somehow whatever, life just pulls you a certain way, and I was into it, and so I didn't even ask why why am I doing this or where the hell am I going? I just went, and anyway, so that's how I got into that little network of people, and then we started making guns, and we made a variety of different guns until we finally got to the model that basically you saw.
Yeah.
Where it's a bigger gun.
Yeah, I think it was 2000. early 2000. It was probably 18, maybe more than that now. 18 years ago, I think. And I brought that gun home.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, "What the
hell's
hell
that?
are you gonna do with that? Shoot a whale?"
That's what everybody used to. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, "But this thing shoots," and I used it on the trip last week in Baja. I was like, "This thing shoots so straight."
Yeah.
With a big enough shaft.
Yeah.
I know when I pull the trigger, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like if it's all up to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, is there's been times where I've had big fish go by, and there's just every spearfisherman knows what a sick feeling it is when you think of all the time and hours and that you spend in the water, and then that big one comes by and you have the wrong equipment. Yeah. And so I thought, I'm not going to have the wrong equipment anymore.
Yeah, and in some ways it can cost you your life if you're not careful. Like I shot probably like a 80-pound-ish dogtooth with a reel. Because I was on the reef and there wasn't supposed to be dogtooth there.
Right.
And I was
no one told the dogtooth.
Yeah. And it showed up and I thought, I was so stupid. I remember diving down and I was like, don't shoot it. Don't shoot it. And I kind of like to play around when I see fish like that. I like to dive down just to see how they react. I think you were telling me a story years ago about swimming with white sea bass. Just like put the gun. Like
didn't shoot them.
Just
want to see how they reacted to movement and stuff.
Yeah, and that's how you learn too.
Yeah.
So like I dove down on this dogtooth and like a true predator, like not afraid, swam right up to me, and then the good idea fairy popped in my head. Like, oh, just stone him. What could possibly go wrong? And I shot him, and then I was like, what the fuck did I just do?
Yeah.
And he started taking line, and I thought, I'm gonna have to lose my gun and everything,
Was it tied off at the end, or did you get spooled?
I started to get spooled, but it wrapped around a coral head about 93 feet. And I thought, oh, my buddy was gonna dive down and put another shaft in it. And I had a double flopper, and a shark came up to it, and that thing fought so hard and ripped the flopper off. The other flopper, and both bent the shaft, of course, and then just took off.
Wow.
And I hit it, I was going for the head, and I hit it right here in the jaw, and it was doing a cough. And then I come to find out, through target practice with that gun, unlike the guns we first made, it was too light in the nose, so I was shooting it, and it was kicking the muzzle flip, and it was going low. So had I put the time in before, I might have maybe stoned it, who knows? But yeah.
Well, actually, and that brings up a good point. The first, when we started making these guns, you have to obviously test the gun, because if you just make a gun and you go out in the water,
that's not the time to be.
No.
Yeah.
So we'd get like old milk cartons and a lead weight and stick it in a pool, and we'd measure out like 15 feet off the end of the gun, 20 feet. And you can learn more in like 2 hours of shooting at a target in the gun. I mean, that thing will become, like laser.
An extension.
So then you just take that, all the guesswork of how to line, sight the thing just goes out, and then
So it's funny. I'm so glad you said that, because somebody told me that a while ago too, that you can learn more in an hour of shooting in a pool than you will an entire season.
For sure, or years.
I feel like my gun, I wasn't hitting anything with this gun that I made. And I was like, no, what's going on? And I figured out I was shooting low. In like 3 hours, I tried all the different bands, all the different shafts. I had multiple people shoot the gun, so it wasn't just me. And then come to the conclusion of shooting way low because of the flip. And I put 2 ounces of lead in the nose. And now I feel like I cannot miss with that gun. It's just like point and shoot, and it's a laser.
Yeah, and the guns vary too, because you don't actually, like a gun, you have a sight, but these don't have sights. So you're sighting like over the bands and out there or whatever, and it's like,
it's really point or shoot, like. And then like with the mid handles, like the one we made, where it's like line up the lateral line of the fish with the gun, because you don't want your face there when that thing kicks. Like, I made that mistake. Filming with one hand, going, I should be good, and then boom, getting drilled in the chin at 50 feet, like dumbass.
Well, so we started playing around. That's when we started realizing that we could get much more effectiveness out of the guns that we were building.
Right. So you start scaling them down and just trying to fine tune them, or?
Well, back in the day, like with it was like, I don't know. There's a lot of details with it, but basically, they just we're shooting like 3 bands and now, I shoot 6 bands. I mean, and I shoot a 20-pound gun, and with 6 bands because.
Did you make it, or?
Yeah. And because and it's wood, and then we so obviously it's going to float too much if it's all just wood. So we inlay, we melt down the lead, and then we put that inside the gun where you can't see it, and between laminations, and so it's pretty weightless in the water, but what I found, which I really liked, was that there was little to no recoil even with 6 bands. So because I didn't like, because I made some guns that were small, and when you put a lot of power on them, there's a lot of recoil, and so I went to the idea, and what I saw with the advantage with the bigger guns is that you take the recoil just out of it, and so obviously just intellectually it just makes sense that the spear's gonna go further because you're not absorbing.
Right.
It's just going that way more instead of the power coming back too, right? So you're getting better distance, and then. And so that's, I don't know, I haven't had a reason to change,
You shoot a 3/8 shaft still?
Yeah. And I was shooting a 5/16 for a little while, and then I was like, done, 3/8.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How long is the gun? Like, how long is the
I think it's 60, 62 inches.
Okay. So it's like kind of similar to the one that I have.
Yeah. It's similar.
Yeah.
And then we started doing different things, like getting like a plastic track that we would inlay on it, so so it's not the wood or whatever.
Right.
And so there's little tweaks that we make here and there.
You can do that, or the high molecular or whatever track that they route out and slide in there. Yeah. It's funny because it's still evolving, and it's like, but now I feel like it's so specialized. It's evolving into like what works for you, right?
Yeah.
Because like everybody always asks, what's the best mask? It's like the one that fits your face.
Yeah.
And I feel like even the guns like that too, like just the one that you like.
Yeah.
Like I made my own, the last couple builds ago, I made a tea candle, and I'm left-handed, so I just made it,
to fit your left hand. Yeah.
And it's like, it just literally feels like, wow, this thing is just, the angle's perfect. If I bring it up straight, it's linear and everything's perfect. But it kind of sucks because your buddies are right-handed. You're like, this is really awkward. Like trying to shoot it, but,
Yeah.
With spearfishing, there's almost kind of like two mindsets to it. I have a friend that's a professor at the university, and he's not like a Neanderthal, like where I tend to kind of be sometimes Neanderthalish, I would say. But he's very calculated and methodical about everything, and his whole thing is trying to figure out the piece to the puzzle, like understanding the fish, how to get the fish, how to hunt it, certain things.
Right.
Like, which is pretty awesome because that's that hunting side, right? Like, and it seems like all of us kind of have the same two components of, the drive to do something and then the hunting side. And like, some of us may have a little more than the others too.
Yeah.
And it's just weird how that all works out, but it all works out, so.
Well, what's interesting, I think it relates to what you're talking about, is there was a study that was done about people that were highly educated, and why aren't they typically, as far as how do you rate a success standard, right? And so why aren't the people that are highly educated most successful? There's a lot of people that don't have this higher education or whatever.
Right.
There's plenty of the people that haven't done that are very successful. And what they found is that a lot of people, when they get to a certain education level, they're afraid of stuff they don't know. And so it's the caveman that'll just jump into the fire and figure a way out. That is the one that figures out, that is the one, they actually say that percentage-wise, you will have more success being that guy than you will be the guy that studies something forever and has this degree, whatever, all that stuff. But now sees so many pieces of the puzzle that they don't know which one to put in first, and they're afraid to jump into the fire and just sort of brawl their way out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so there's a certain amount of
well, you learn so much.
So there's one for the caveman.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah. I mean,
like this right now.
Yeah, there's something to be said for just jumping in the fire and going, you know what? I'm not ready, but I'm not going to die. So what the hell? Let's do this. And that's that attitude of just not having the fear. Now, I'm not saying be reckless and just blindly run into things.
Right.
Of course, running into things with some intelligence has a certain, you get less bumps on the head that way.
Yeah.
And so you want to have a balance of both, is what it is, because you can be the guy that's highly educated or whatever that's afraid to make a move, and you can be the guy that doesn't have any education that jumps into the fire and can't figure his way out. So you know, somewhere in the middle.
It's
You
funny
wanna-
about that because
Yeah.
the last trip I did was with a friend of mine who's an ER trauma at UCLA Medical Center, and he's never spearfished before. And I was like, well, choose your weapon, choose wisely. Like, what do you want? He's like, I want the pole spear. I was like, okay, that's going to be a tough one, you know.
Yeah.
But I think what it is the art of learning, and the people that stay like are aware of how to learn. And so don't have an ego, always be flexible, as Bruce Lee would say. And he just got in there and shot 3 fish. Like his first day ever spearfish, he had like scuba fins on. He rented them from some dive shop. I was like, bro, I could have had fins I could give you. And he went in there and he was like, I just really love like the methodical part of trying to figure out how to take this thing and kill that thing with it and then eat it. And he actually was like, the killing thing I didn't really like that at first. But now that I see the big picture of it, it's not, you know, it's very, from start to finish, it's very primitive, pure at the same time, and it's all part of the process, and there's no like disrespect or anything like that. So it was just funny that I was surprised this guy is so educated, spent, you know, 10 plus years in medical school, he's a specialist, and then he chooses the 3-prong, just, you know, the hard, I think it's pretty hard. And he killed it, and I was like, wow, really like a walking poster child for this whole Baja trip thing. Like, it's just incredible. But
he went on your last trip?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And like I just brought some friends that were just kind of new to spearfishing, and I wanted to see what they thought. So I kind of get an outside look at something to see, was this be something you guys would like to do? And they're like, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So so you've been all over the world surfing, and then not to change the subject here, but I guess we'll change the subject. Been all over the world surfing, and by being all over the world surfing, you're in these spots now where there's fish, you're in the ocean, and like some of the most, I think your West Oz story was pretty wild with going to West Oz.
Where we saw a guy get attacked by a shark.
Yeah, and then also you were diving.
With the tiger shark?
The tiger shark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you throw yourself, you know, it's weird. I never asked why. I never asked why. I just jumped in. I said, this is what I do.
Yeah.
So I never asked why. And so if you're, you know, you knew that you were jumping into the lion's den, let's say, and so exciting things can happen. And I just always figured I'd be able to fight my way out, I guess.
Right. Just young, naive.
But well, when you're younger, you have this sense of invincibility, or that everything's worth it. It's worth it to do this deep dive. It's worth it to battle a shark for my fish, or it's worth it to jump into a dangerous situation because I'm just interested in this, in what happens here, and I want a first-hand look at it. You know, and for some people that looks crazy. I get it. Right, but we're all drawn by different things. Yeah. So
I remember getting vortexed by 200-pound tuna, my first time ever diving offshore for tuna. Like
that was here, the bluefin.
Yeah, and I remember getting vortexed, and it was just a moment where I was like,
where they were like swimming around you, or just like
they were just swimming around me.
Yeah.
Like literally, I was in the middle, and the school was partying and going around me.
Okay.
And I remember thinking like, this is like shit you see in National Geographic. And there's probably a handful of people that have ever seen this. Like, this is kind of why I do this stuff. Because I want to live life. And if I'm old and broken, you know, so be it. But I crushed it when I was here.
Yeah.
That's kind of the mindset. And then I was thinking too, like my kids, I want to get a world record. The only reason why I want to get a world record is so my kids can have it on my wall at my house.
Yeah.
And my grandkids will be like, Grandpa wasn't full of shit. Like, this guy's crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I just, and it's like, and that's kind of what I thought about that Surfer's Journal article that they did on you, which was an amazing article, by the way. So Google it, Colin Smith. I don't know if you saw on internet or not, but it was like, I never wanted to be famous at all. And I'm not saying I'm famous now, but I never wanted the publicity. But I feel like for your family, it's kind of cool to see, like, hey, you know what, your grandpa was this, or your dad, you know, your dad, and it's kind of cool because I think you know, hopefully I get to show all that stuff to my kids, and then they too can go jump in the ocean and, you know, and experience it.
Yeah.
I feel like outdoorsmen are so much more knowledgeable than the way things flow in ecosystems than even like biologists half the time, because we've seen it. Like diving in the kelp out here in Point Loma, that place is a ghost town. Like with calicos, like I remember even just scuba diving at work and looking, and I was like, where the hell are all the fish? Like this healthy ecosystem, and there's just nobody home. Like it's just been so overfished.
It seems to be.
Yeah. How do you feel about the whole like marine protection areas and all that stuff? Like, what's your thoughts
The
on
MLPA
that?
stuff. You know, I think that it's hard to have, you know, a tangible number on how many fish are there, but I think I think that you would be sticking your head in the sand to say that there's no impact on, you know, when there's boats out there fishing the shit out of it.
Day.
Right.
You see it probably from your porch, just like,
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that impact means, and I don't know what it translates into. But, you know, then you go up to whatever North County where there's not many cattle boats, there's not much in the way of commercial fishing. I would say they got rid of gill nets a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I have to say, this is not science, but this is just, you know, one diver sticking his face in the water for years, is that when they got rid of gill nets, we started seeing a lot more fish. Now, is that a coincidence? I don't know. There's some reality to the idea that these nets were taking a lot of fish. Now, I don't know what that, I can't quantify that exactly. What does that mean?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know that we started seeing a lot more fish, and maybe it was a cycle, because there's something to do with cycles. Until 6 years ago, nobody had this bluefin stuff here either, right? Yeah. And then now, and like wahoo, you know.
Right. Well, I remember you said you shot.
I shot one at Pukey.
How big was it?
It was like, I don't know, 50 pounds or something.
Yeah. Which
for me, it was a very special fish, because, you know, I was diving where I dove for years for yellowtail, and here comes a wahoo, and I'm like, you gotta be out of your fucking mind. I mean, we never ever dreamed about that back in the day. Like, I got years of diving, of lots of time in the water, of yellowtail and sea bass. That's it, right?
That's what I tell everybody. Not even Dorado or anything.
No, well, not at the islands. You know, I did shoot a bluefin though at the islands like a long time ago too, like in the mid '90s. It was and it was like a 25 pounder or something, you know. But I was like, oh my god! And then like, you know, everyone's like, wow, bluefin, you know, woo. And now it's just nothing. But back then honestly, it was a different time, and so you could call it. Fishermen always talk about cycles of things, and you know, I know 10 years ago or stuff.
And I don't know how long those cycles are. I don't know either. Humans do either. And I've only been in the oceans like the 50s or whatever.
Right.
So maybe that cycle is 30 years. Maybe the cycle's 20 years. I mean, El Nino was what, like 82 or something, and then it was 97.
Yeah.
So maybe that's one cycle. I don't know.
It's hard. That's what I mean. Is it's hard, that aspect of it makes it very difficult, and I don't know how science is figuring out their end, and I don't know how the fishermen are figuring out their end. And so I don't know how to, you know, but I think where you can start to get closer to the truth is when you're talking about rockfish, slow grow fish that live right here all the time. Yeah. They're not pelagics, they're not moving. Right. And so that's where, you know, that's where I think so the MLPA stuff for that kind of, I don't have an argument to keep it open.
Right. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like I don't mind if they would close it for a certain amount of time. I feel like there could be more communication with them saying, okay, we're going to close it for 5 years, and then we'll open it up. We'll see where it's at. But like I know just from diving, and I was like, good God, man! Like just using common sense. If you have the same boat going to the same spot every day, twice a day, like, you know, a couple of those boats, and you're look at the fish counts. I know how fast those fish grow and reproduce. You can look it up. I don't see how that's possible. Remember, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't mind not holding off on diving a spot if it means they're great or good. I'll just go somewhere else and check it out. You know?
Well, I think that's what's cool about spearfishing is we're basically going after pelagics, and so those are just fish that are transiting the area, whether it's tuna, whatever. I mean, nobody's out there that I know that's shooting rockfish or vermilion or whatever, like any
Some
of that
people
stuff.
do, I guess.
Do they?
But
Yeah.
they start out that way, I think.
But hell, if you're going down 100 feet to shoot a rockfish, God bless you, good for you, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
we're not making a big enough imprint, you know.
No, there's
So
no.
it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you took 4 fish last week.
Right,
You know,
right.
They took 1,000
I-
today alone. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
well, I think it's good to have both. I think
Yeah.
you know you got to have equal representation on both sides, because it's typically somewhere in the middle that is close is where the truth is.
Yeah.
Right. Like if
Yeah.
you close everything, that doesn't work. And
No.
if but if you just let it just everybody take whatever the hell they want,
Right.
that probably isn't going to work either.
Well, then I'm kind of sensitive to the fact too, like, you know, a lot of jobs or people depend on those commercial
Yeah.
cattle boats for jobs, and it's like, without giving them a voice or recognizing them, that's not fair to them either.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's like the government comes in and subsidize them and take a year off or what.
Yeah.
But there's, you know, definitely a bigger picture there, not just one side, obviously.
From when I first started at the fuel dock too, just in general, the local commercial fishing boats,
Yeah.
there's a lot less.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot less. There was a lot more of
A
them.
lot of those guys you all know personally, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, and they just, whatever. There's more regulation. There's more, and I don't know, whatever. I'm not going to say whether it's good or bad. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at the science behind it. I'm not doing that. But I know that I can tell you the professionalism that's now brought to commercial fishing is higher,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And but. Yeah, that's just kind of a whole nother thing. But that's where, for me as a spear fisherman too, I just enjoyed the idea, and then you touched on it just briefly. But I've had times, I remember I had a good season, had plenty of fish, and there was sea bass. It was like 60-foot visibility, and it was like they were raining out of the kelp. Like there was hundreds and hundreds of sea bass, and I just tucked my gun up under my chest, and I would do dives, and just kind of see how they reacted. And I was just very, very slow moving, and it was actually probably one of the things I remember the most. I didn't even shoot a fish. I swam with them for like an hour, just wanted to see how they reacted to me. And the idea was just that I had plenty of fish at home, so I didn't need more. So I was and it's all play, right? It's just like, you didn't lose if you come home without a fish.
Yeah.
You won. Like, you got to go out and go diving, right? It's rad. Like, go stretch your lungs and have a good time.
Yeah, I
right?
spent my time swimming in a kelp forest.
Right.
I think that's the hardest thing about blue water, though, is that if you don't see fish, you just rode around in the ocean. It's so annoying.
Yeah.
But when you go in the kelp, it's like, I literally just spent a day just snorkeling.
Yeah.
And maybe I saw something cool, like a bat ray swam right next
Yeah,
to it.
the rougher days is, like you said, when you go out all day looking for a tuna and you never even get in the water.
Yeah, it's
then you're like, sheesh, okay, that one's a little harder to swallow.
That was $200 in gas. Yeah.
But even if there's no fish around, you can always stretch your lungs. You can always, look for different caves and whatever and play with, and that's a fun aspect of diving. That I dive with a small group of people, and so I don't really know what most of the divers these days, how they do it and what they do. But that's a part of diving that I don't think that's the part of diving that got it popular. I think you know what I mean, just stretching your lungs and just enjoying being in the water.
I think part of diving, go ahead,
is the fish, right?
Yeah,
it's like, look at me with a big fish or whatever.
I call it the dick measuring contest. It is
that's
what
fine
it is.
too. Who cares? Like,
But it's true. It's like you could go out and shoot a 300-pound bluefin, and I know I could see this. I think kind of Brandon Wallers did this. I shot my personal best dogtooth.
Yeah.
And I was like all proud of it. I was like, And then I think he posted, because he was diving the same day in another part of the world, because the tide, just far away, but like another part of the world, but the tides and everything were similar, full moon. And he shot his like 200-pound dog or something, and I was like, this motherfucker. And I remember, like, I kind of joke around about it, but it's like, it's totally true. It's like, damn, I guess my fish isn't that special.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's like a healthy, healthy competition, whatever. But yeah, you can shoot a 300-pound bluefin. Some dude goes out, shoots the 316. It's like, we're going out tomorrow. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, how many times just in the last, since these bluefins showed up out of nowhere, how many times has someone tried to put in paperwork for a world record and then it was broken the next week?
Yeah.
Like over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
And so, I don't think, I don't know.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be
It's
fun.
supposed to be, yeah.
The schlong measuring contest. It's just funny because it's true. It's like I remember, like
Well, we all could be accused of it.
Oh,
right,
yeah.
for one.
Yeah.
So we've all done it, but then it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
that, you know, then it's just funny when someone got something bigger, did something rad, or dove deeper, you shot a bigger fish or whatever. Can you laugh or does it ruin your day? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I
Right?
like I saw
Yeah.
was it I guess automobile Austin Deary. He does a lot of photo stuff, but he's pretty popular. I think he's on the Rife diver.
Okay.
But he shot last week. He shot two yellowtails. One was 40 and 30 at once. Really, I just got like my personal best, which is about 40. He just shot like two basically.
Yeah.
So it's just funny because I feel like there's a group of guys that know and accept what it is, and they just play it. You know what I mean? Like it's fun.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And, you know what? And like we were talking about earlier, where it was like, I have so much yellowtail in my freezer, I don't need to shoot any more yellowtail. So even on the last trip to Baja, I think you're talking about your most memorable experience was swimming with the white sea bass. And for me, it was diving down and just sitting on the bottom and having like a school, like 20-pound yellowtail, just circle me up, getting closer, and it was kind of like, I just loved it. I put my gun down on the rock, and I was just sitting there, and I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah. So what do you think are some of your top trips you've ever done? Like surfing or spearfishing?
So the West Oz in the early '90s was incredible. I mean, the spearfishing was, let's just say, exciting. It wasn't like super productive, I would say. I mean, we shot some fish, but just how alive the ocean was and all the sharks and the intensity. You know, there was bait balls, like you would look out. We were up in like northwestern Australia surfing, and we would surf, and then you sit on the beach, and there was like 50 bait balls as far as you could see in every direction, with birds crashing, and whales coming through and just gorging through these giant bait balls, and it was heavy, and I became buddies with this guy Scotty, and he had a little tin boat. Then we went out and would troll around and catch some fish, and then I jumped in on a couple of those bait balls, and it was pretty active, pretty radical, and they were. I think he actually took a picture of me. I have it somewhere with me swimming up to the bait ball because he thought I was going to die, and so it was going to be like the last picture. He was going to have the last picture of me or something, but it's just you don't know what you don't know, right? Like now I got. What we used to think was gnarly.
Does your wife have a big life insurance policy? Because when I would go on my trips to Tahiti, she's like, I'm doing
maxing out the policy.
Oh yeah, she's like for your Tahiti trip because I don't think you have the brain to say you can't paddle that and then not do it. Yeah.
I reined it in a bit once I started having kids. I reined it in a bit, but still, you never know when accidents happen. But the one thing that I do think that's cool about surfing and spearfishing
I just have to say, really?
is that
that was Colin's wife.
Is that the one thing that's cool about it is like the stuff that we used to think was gnarly.
Right.
I mean, I was one of the first guys to surf the box on like a pretty big day. Like kind of back then. Everyone was like, "Oh, that wave's a killer," and all this kind of stuff, right? And now it's like it's nothing. It's like sure, it's a heavy wave or whatever, but it's nothing compared to what they do now. And so the progression of things, and I just love that there's these young kids that pick up the torch and just freaking go. And it inspires me to do more too, because I was like, God, I used to think I was. It's like the dick measuring thing. It's like, I used to think I was kind of gnarly. You know what I mean? Because nobody else wanted to do this stuff.
Right.
And now look what these guys are doing.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah. I remember seeing Ship's Turns Plus for the first time in a magazine.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Mark Matthews.
Yep. And they were talking about the 18-foot great white that was there.
Yeah.
And then I remember seeing him draw, and I was like, you can do that?
Yeah.
I didn't think you could do that.
Right.
And I was actually the last place I surfed in Guam where I said, I remember if I don't make this, I'm probably going to go to the ER at a minimum. And I'm by myself. My wife told me not to surf by myself anymore with these waves because I was telling how shallow it was. And I remember thinking, I just wish there was like a pro surfer here to show me to see
what's possible.
What's not. Because I know obviously I am not at that skill level, but I feel like even with surfing slabs and going for heavy waves, 90% of it is mental because it's a drop, okay?
Yeah.
And you're pulling into a barrel.
Yeah.
There's not like I'm not doing an error 360. I'm just literally timing the wave, dropping, and getting barreled. You know.
Yeah.
So
Well, there was an old quote that Tom Kern had where it was about his season in Hawaii. He had the season in Hawaii where he was just charging like a maniac, and it was noticeable.
Yeah.
And he had this saying, and I'm going to butcher it a bit, but it was like I actually was. My intention this year was I was going to charge so hard that it actually made it safer, because it's in. I think it's actually in that hesitation.
Yeah.
Like if you decide you're going to do it, the hesitation has no room there, right? If you've already measured it and you've said this is within the limits of what I think is acceptable, then hesitation is your enemy.
Right.
Hesitation is something you do. Well, hesitation is something you do that you figure that out before you get to the point where you got to make the decision.
Right.
Right? If you're there, you want to have already kind of measured that, because what I've found is the gnarliest drops, the heaviest waves, and that kind of stuff that I've done, I didn't think I was going to fall. Right. Like I was 100% certain I was going to make it.
Yeah.
And I didn't care what that wave did, I was going to make it. Right? And even if I was in the lip going over, and I got blasted on the reef, it wasn't because I didn't think I was going to make it, right? There was no hesitation on my part.
You know what spot changed that? I saw you, I think we were surfing the slab, and I saw you fall, airdrop, like land sideways, and then, make it. And I remember I was like, wow, he's a big guy and he can make it. That's cool. There's hope for me. Like seeing a lot of guys that are smaller.
Yeah.
But I also thought like, dude, that guy believed he was going to make it the entire time.
Yeah.
And I noticed that in Tahiti when I was surfing in Tahiti, and you could see the reef. And all of a sudden it was like, I made so many drops on that place that I would have never made it home, just because I focused so hard that I knew if I did I knew I could do everything right, and I was like, you have to be completely focused. Where here I probably like, I'm just gonna jump because like whatever, there's no consequence. Until you get that like significant consequences causes me like personally to like rise up and like either do it or don't do it. And I think that's what it is. I told my friend in Guam who's not the best surfer, he's like, Brett, you're really good, man. And I go, I suck. Like I'm not that great at surfing. However, I go, it's the type of waves we're surfing here, it just requires you to be extremely confident. Like I've been surfing my whole life. I know I can make a drop. Yeah. And either do it or don't. And you can do the same thing, man. You learn to surf on a shallow coral reef. That's better than like 90% of the people out there. Like it's confidence, Yeah. And it's like that with dive. It's like that with anything. Yeah. Which kind of leads me to my next question of, now you're doing, and you sent me the link, the website.
Yes, the Awakening trainings.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of what we're talking about, is mindset and all this stuff.
Same stuff.
Yeah. And you sent it to me, you're like, a lot of people that know me don't think I would be into this. And that's the first thing I thought of when I watched the video, and it was like, oh, I was this, and I was like, interesting. And then you sent that, and I kind of chuckled. I was like, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, Colin, like you got all your shit together. Like obviously you have the right mindset. What's up? So what's up?
Well, there's always a different level.
There's
just always a different level. Whether you're, strung out on drugs, or you got some sort of horrific life based on all kinds of life experiences that you now have limiting beliefs. Right. Possibly it's based on things that happened in the past, and that's limiting you from moving forward. All the way up to people that are very successful that are just looking for that next level. Yeah. So I think that there's an interesting saying that how do you judge your life, right? And what are we here for? Where you get into some of that stuff, and I love, there was a psychologist that talks about everything in your life matters. Everything you do matters. Right. And if everything you do matters, then you need to look at it as if it matters. And a lot of times what I found, and that's what we've been talking about this whole, for the last 30 minutes or so, is we've been talking about things that have been holding us back from diving deeper, charging a bigger wave or a more difficult wave or whatever, right? Well, then you just expand that. That's a small piece of the world, right? Very small. Then you start putting that out into other places in people's life. Because not everybody cares if they make a late drop or dive deep, right? So everybody's got something that they're trying to overcome. So all we're really talking about is overcoming obstacles that are preventing you from living the kind of life that you want to live. And so that's what our training is about. And so the training is just about helping people we have this process that we go through, and what it does is it becomes very obvious to the participant what has been holding them back from getting to that next step, whether it's that next level of success.
Yeah.
No matter which way you slice it, it doesn't even matter what it is. It doesn't matter what you're seeking in life. We're always trying to overcome the limiting beliefs that we have on ourselves is probably number one, and then who you share your time with
that voice
is a big deal too. Yeah. Basically, there's all kinds of science about this stuff. It's pretty wild. It's not disputable. It's all grounded in full science, right? They call it the monkey mind. You have between 50 and 100,000 thoughts a day, and 90% are the same as yesterday, and 80% have some sort of negative connotation. Right. That's you, me, and everybody. We all share that.
It's funny because my wife says you can be so negative like on yourself and look at things in a negative way, and that's like one of the things that I've been struggling my whole life just based on things that happen.
I've seen that. I know that in you too, but because I've seen that too, because you're a big, strong, tough guy that like charges and does all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
But that's that voice, right? That's that negative aspect of that voice. But here's the thing: is that what we don't understand is that voice is associated to a thought, and you can actually look and see neural pathways being formed, thoughts being formed in your brain. Your brain's a very sophisticated piece of machinery that creates thoughts based on experiences.
Yeah.
And what happens is that these thoughts get replayed, they get stimulated by life. Life stimulates them, right? And then your mind goes through this crazy analytical process where it says it goes through this big, when have we seen this before, and what did we do that worked well? That's what your brain does with almost every situation.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
And then it goes, ooh, this one. And somehow, that's how complicated and cool your brain is. And it goes, oh, this is kind of like when it happened 20 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. We were in a similar situation, and this is how we reacted. We like the outcome, and so we're going to play that pattern again. We're going to do that again.
So lately what I've had is because everybody has their demons or whatever.
It's just thoughts.
And it's your spouse that'll usually call you on it.
She'll expose them. Yeah. That's why relationships are difficult.
Yeah. So she was she did something that took me all the way back to college.
Sure.
And it crushed me in college.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I told her, I was we got in a big fight about it.
Yeah.
And then until I kind of broke down and told her, I was like, you made me feel like this.
Yeah.
And
that's huge.
Yeah.
That you were able to make that association is big, because what you're talking about is your mind is a pattern running machine. And whatever impacts us the most in our life, those create the largest neural pathways. So in other words, you're almost always looking for that in the world. So when life stimulates, so the more you have a thought, or the more traumatic the thought is, the more you're going to have that thought, and the more that the less life has to do, and the people around you have to do in order to stimulate that. So that's why if you have anger problems or if you have emotional problems, they're based on something that happened in the past, that the life is stimulating this pattern of the past, this pathway from the past.
Right.
And so it's pretty wild, right? And so when you say,
I'm like, maybe I gotta do this training, bro.
No, it's crazy.
So what are things that you do to mitigate these things? Is it more like kind of a counseling thing, or there's tools? Or
so that's the cool part about the course is it's an experiential course. There's very little dialogue. The amount of dialogue that we just went over is probably because I do think that people have to be aware of how the game's being played. You have to know what's happening.
Right.
Your behavior is based on a thought. So you're not your thought, you're not your behavior. You're neither one. If you change your thought, you change your behavior. Like that. Right? So you have to understand that, and you have to accept that. So when someone says, I'm angry, or no, you're not. You have a behavior that manifests as anger.
Yeah.
But if you change the thought that is linked with the anger, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of psychology and psychiatrists and stuff like that, is to defuse this stuff.
Right.
Well, in our course, we have a way of shortening that to very short period of time. In 5 days, we get to a place where, and it's experiential. So it's not me telling you. You actually feel the changes. It's your personal journey. Yeah. And that's why we call it the transformational journey. Right. So I'm just telling you what's happening. Take it or leave it. That's what's happening. It can be backed up by science and whatever else you want, right?
Yeah.
You can say I'm full of shit. Okay, then go study and tell me where I'm wrong.
Right.
But I'm just telling you, I've studied this stuff quite a bit because I'm very intrigued by it. You know, everything we were talking
Well, it
about.
goes back to trying to better, you know.
Yeah, just you know, how are you showing up? Are you showing up? I was like, holy crap, I'm showing up as like a minor bird. I have this. You know, like life does certain things, and I have an answer for it based on some past pattern. I want to be more conscious and aware than that.
Yeah.
I want to be able to like if something new comes in my life, play with that a little differently than maybe I did in the past. Maybe the outcome will be better. Maybe it'll be more beneficial.
This is good, man. I hope that people are listening and they can kind of like look at this too. Like, I mean, my wife always says you're like 98% the man in my dreams. 2% the worst dude.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I know exactly where that 2% comes.
Dude.
And I've tried to change it.
You nailed it.
And it's hard.
Well, most of us, we have about 5 patterns.
Yeah.
Like we have a handful of patterns that are holding us back from getting to that really just huge next step of like, wow, my life got way better.
Yeah.
So, and it's not, you got 50% to go. It's a small number.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there's a handful of patterns, behaviors that you're running that she doesn't like, or the world, or whatever, like that are holding you back from being more, being better, being whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so the thing that's different, and the reason why we took on this course, because we have, is that it was very impactful in our lives. We did this course with the people that did it previous to us in the early 2000s, and then they ran it for the last almost 20 years. And then they just retired, and they came to us and said, "Hey, do you guys want to do this?" And it was so impactful in our lives that we're like, "Hell yeah!" I mean, we don't need to do it.
Well, it's funny because I don't know if we were in filming yet, but it's like I feel like how old are you now? Like 50?
I'm going to be 50 in December.
Yeah, and I just turned 40, and I feel like you're like 10 years ahead of me at everything. And it's like, and it cracks me up because I think I saw you surfing the jetty one day and you did an air or something, and I was like, "There's still hope." Like this guy's 10 years, he's still progressing. I want to keep progressing, but I see you like always progressing, and all. For the most part, like I see the kids through the social media or whatever, and it's like, damn, dude, I got to get on this, like, because what I notice is like you're like the dude leading the charge on a lot of things, and it's like, and it was weird because I got into yoga to help like with injuries, and yoga is very boring to me, but it's a necessary evil if you want to keep doing the things that you want to do. It's the only thing I found that was like really helped me.
Yeah.
And then I think I saw you like lost a bunch of weight. You're all thin, and you're like, I'm doing yoga. And Carrie's like, he does it like twice a day.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, this guy is so funny because everything I'm kind of figuring out, you're like just a
little
step
bit ahead.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's funny. It's like an age thing or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like really interesting to me. So I love hearing your input on things.
Well, here's the thing: is that if you're the kind of person that's ever evolving, right, and you're trying to be better,
right, as you should. I mean,
well, if everything in your life matters, right? Let's go back to that. If everything in your life matters, every moment in your life matters, that doesn't mean doing the same thing over and over again. That's actually the definition of insanity: is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Right.
So the idea, to me, is like start embracing different aspects of your life. You know, it doesn't mean you're turning your back on something or whatever, but there's a lot of cool stuff out there. And you'll find that as you start to welcome other things in your life, that all kinds of cool things come with it. There might be some stuff that you're not into that comes with it too. Yeah. So you adjust. We're very good at adjusting. Everybody, can just go decipher whether they like it or not, and you just make a move. But
that's the funny thing about change,
stuck.
right? Change is it's always happening.
Yeah.
So you can either like
whether you like it or not.
You better adapt and overcome. And animals, if they don't adapt, they die.
Yeah.
Entire species.
Right.
So like I was telling my buddies in Guam about the behavior of the people.
Yeah.
I was like, well, listen. I mean, if you live in a nice place and there's fish declining, you have to change. You have to shift what you're doing if you want to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you got to pay attention to. What you're receiving, and that's the thing. So our course is really about. We talked a little bit about the patterns of the mind, and so those patterns are what you're putting out to the world, right? So the world is answering in a certain way, right? So if you change the way you show up in the world, and this is where it's just crazy the amount of difference that we'll see after just 5 days in the course, is that the people get so much benefit from the course that they start putting different things out in the world, and they just can't believe how cool the world's responding to what they're putting out there. Yeah. And that's the purpose of the training isn't to get people to follow us or for us to create. It's about each person to realize that the change that you're looking for comes from within you, and you will not only make your life better, but the people around you will you're making their lives better too. Your kids, your wife, the people that are close to you, because they're the ones that are going to notice right away. Holy crap! Like, wow, you're like what used to get pissed off at this is like now you're just taking it like no big deal. And so that's the passion that we have for this course. I can tell you it's a lot of work and a lot of effort on our part, but we do it because the impact that it made on us and thousands of other people that did the course before us. And so we're continuing to do this as a way of trying to get people to realize that they're much more than they think they are, and that it's within their grasp.
Is there? Well, I can put the link on there too, but
it's is it on Carrie Lee Smith now, Carrie, or is it Transformational? Oh, she's busy. Sorry. But what is it? It's
The Awakening.
The Awakening trainings. That's the Awakening trainings.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's very specific, like the way you spell it and all that stuff. So
Not Awakening trainings.
yeah, but what's cool about it is it's a very short period of time. And that's the other part is that you can go to a psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, and you can do all kinds of stuff for like a year or two. This is like, I'm telling you, dude, there's like a massive amount of shit change that happens in a short period of time, because we're not trying to string anything out, and we're not trying to make anything longer than it has to be.
Right.
And so what's cool about it is that it happens in such a short period of time, and all it really does is it clears a lot of these patterns and a lot of these behaviors, and it makes it so clear to you, not me telling you, you see it, how these haven't been benefiting you, and you have an answer now of how to not repeat these anymore. And so it's really a point of redesigning your life from a very clear, conscious way, and it's much easier to do that. So, I mean, that's you know, I'm not like it might sound like some sort of sales thing. I'm not a salesman. I just believe that in this shit because I've experienced it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really illustrating that it's grounded in science because it is. And that I mean, I honestly feel like it's so beneficial, and we've been doing the trainings now for a couple of years, and at the end of the week you just can't believe the transformation that happens with people. And we didn't do anything other than operate this course. It all came from within them, and we're all about them acknowledging that you're the one that put the work in, you're the one that did this, and you're the one that can continue this when you get out of here. We don't want any dependency at all. This is about getting people to break down the barriers of their life and being able to move forward, making their lives better, and consequently everybody in their life.
And the funny thing about that, exactly, is that it benefits everyone.
Yeah.
To put people in your community, and this is what I get when I coach football too. It's like, dude, I go, raise your hand if you're going to go to the NFL. I go, guys, probably none of you.
Yeah.
Probably not. So why are we out here? We're out here to learn teamwork, to learn perseverance, work ethic, and to work in groups, and to learn that it's not all about us. It's about the overall thing.
The collective.
Everybody, the collective.
Yeah.
And so that's what I try to tell them all the time too.
Yeah. Right.
But I mean, who do you want in your community?
Yeah.
Do you want a bunch of raging asses? Like, because I have my moments, you know?
Right.
It's like, who do you want in your community? So it just makes sense that, like, God, it'd be so cool to live. And I lived in, you know, I spent a lot of time away, and I can tell you, like, the group of people you're around will make that deployment or whatever it is
good, and
good
or not. Yeah, totally.
I mean, and you see it on a much smaller scale, so wouldn't it be great if everybody around you?
Well, that's one of the things too, is environment stronger than willpower.
Yeah.
So who you place yourself with,
right,
and where you decide to place your awareness and your time and your attention, and the people that you decide to hang out with and the activities you do, that determines the outcome of your life. And sometimes it's hard to see the things that we're doing that are destructive, right? Or that, or not even, they don't have to be destructive. They can just be like not leading us where we want to go.
Right.
Like it can be super destructive, or it can be, you know, like, why am I doing this? Like, you know, but you have to have a real space of clarity in order to be able to see this and be able to really take that step into a new direction that's going to lead you out of this place that you don't really want to stay stuck in.
Right.
You know? So it's interesting because our whole conversation is
kind
based on
into that.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah.
Because and it really it just it's the way life is. You know, it's the way life is. Where the next generation is supposed to do shit earlier. They're supposed to go to that next level. They're supposed to do more. They're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the thing is I'm 50 years old. I'm supposed to continue. not
Right.
say that I'm weak now, or I'm 50, or I
Right.
can't do it,
Yeah.
or I don't want excuses. My thing now is like as I get older, I'm going harder. I want to go
I'm
harder.
smarter now.
Yeah, you have the certain amount of experience,
Yeah.
right? So that
You're more
so your
calculated.
decisions, so you're making smarter decisions.
Right.
But there's a certain amount of just straight grunt effort of just overcoming pain and obstacles and working out and whatever.
Right.
That you can never get away from that, and you got to keep going.
Well, for me, it was like, last trip was like, everyone's like, it's a 14-hour drive. And I'm like, I don't give a shit.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And in the end will be, good stuff.
The rewards at the end.
Yeah.
Well, how often is a reward easy? Right?
Yeah.
It isn't.
No.
No. So it's
You want to
over.
shoot world record fish, you better go off the grid and find some Jurassic Park areas if you can. And then, you know what? It's also kind of nice just to push yourself. It makes me feel
Yeah.
young.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like, it gives me a goal, right? So much in life when you're younger, you're always working out for like a goal, whether it's surfing or
Yeah.
like, I always worked out. And then when you graduate college or you're done playing whatever it is, or it's over, you have a knee injury, it's like, now what? What am I going to work out for? You
Yeah.
know, just work out for the insane shit that you love to do.
Yeah.
Just find out what that is and go for it.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
Well, Colin, I wanted to thank you
Yeah.
so much, man,
Yeah.
for having me. Such good stuff to talk
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah. That's fun.
And we'll put the link on the YouTube website and
Yeah.
also on the website. We'll get it up there.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah. Go get yours.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good one. Thanks for listening.